Okay, so here's how to winterize this thing. There's two blue plugs, and then this is the knock sensor. There's one plug that goes right here on the exhaust manifold. The other plug, it's kind of hard to see right now, goes down below, but right off that copper thing right there. Maybe I can point with it right here, right down there. So those two blue plugs, and then I'll take a picture of where the knock sensor goes, but that drains the water out of the block on this side. And there's two plugs on the starboard side here. Again, one right underneath here, coming off the exhaust manifold, and then another one off the block. I'll get a better picture of that when I put it back in. And then you have to take off the thermostat housing, which is right here. Those are tough to get off, those four hoses. You have to use a screwdriver to pry them, but then you take these two bolts off that hold the thermostat housing on there. That all comes off, and then we're going to put antifreeze down here and then down these hoses. So what I do is pour antifreeze in the thermostat housing hole here until I hear it start running out the engine block holes. Okay, I can hear it dribbling out down there, so I know that we've got flow down there. So now what I'm going to do is put the knock sensor and the plug back in the other side on the engine block, and then fill it up with probably about a half gallon or so of antifreeze. So there is the knock sensor. It has a 3/8 inch, or sorry, 7/8 inch wrench needs to use to get that off. To get the plug off, you have to squeeze the big ends of it, and then it just comes right off. You just push it back on to snap the plug back in. You don't want to over tighten that. Just get it snug so that it doesn't leak when you recommission the boat in the spring. That's a good thing to check to make sure it's not leaking around there. So I've got that one in. And then the other plug goes, there's a, right there, that hole. So one of these blue things goes in there, the blue wing nuts. I'm gonna turn the phone off while I get this in. Okay, so there's the one down on the engine block. I put the one back in coming off of the exhaust manifold. And we're gonna put the other one on the manifold on the other side, the exhaust manifold. Should have done that while I was over here. That just goes right here. And just finger tight with these. And then there's one more that goes down here on that copper fuel filter, fuel cooler. So I'm gonna turn this off while I put that one in. Okay, so I got the one on the exhaust manifold right here, the one down on that copper heat exchanger for the fuel right down here, and then the knock sensor right here. So those all need to be removed first. Let the water come out, pour a little antifreeze in up on the thermostat housing to just get some water to come out, or liquid to come out. Put the plugs back in, and then we're going to fill it up with about a half gallon or so of antifreeze. Okay, so that was more like 3/4 of a gallon that I put in there. I'd rather spend a couple of pennies extra on the antifreeze than worry about it freezing with the water that doesn't get drained out of the block. Now we just have to pour some antifreeze down this hose right here, the big one, and the bigger one over on this side, just to make sure that we got water in, or antifreeze inside of the water pump. These two smaller ones we don't need to worry about because they go straight in. Well, actually we are going to pour antifreeze in there because there could be water trapped in the back of the exhaust manifold. So these four will probably end up putting a total of another half gallon or so in, just to be safe. Okay, so I decided 2 gallons total. Most of it goes in the thermostat housing, about a half or a third down the small one on the starboard side, small one on the port side, some down, maybe a third down this one on the port side, and then I think this one actually goes straight into the block. So anyways, that's where everything is going to go. Check to make sure that you still have the gasket on the thermostat housing here. Probably clean it off a little bit. If there's debris on there, put it back on. Okay, so the thermostat housing is back on. 9/16 inch wrench is required for these guys, flat blade screwdriver for these. Pro tip here is when you are trying to get these hoses off, the clamps need to basically be completely undone. Getting over the nubs is really tough, even if you just leave a thread or two on there. So at this point, the engine should be winterized. Now all that's left is to fog it and replace the oil. The oil's already been drained, and we'll walk through that in a second. So what I'm going to do next is remove the center plug on the distributor right here so that it won't start. So I'll take that off. That'll get rid of all of the electricity going in the spark plugs, and then I'm going to turn it over a few seconds just to hopefully distribute some of the water that's in the lines in the RV for the cooling system. Okay, so I decided to take the air cleaner off, and I'm going to fog it at the same time here. So I'm going to take the injector plugs off so that we're not just squirting a bunch of rotten gas in there, even though it should be. So you just take those guys off, and then we're going to have to open the throttle up so that the bellows open up there, and then we're going to spray some fogging oil in there while we're cranking it over. So I haven't cranked it over yet. I pulled the distributor plug off so it won't try to start, and we're just going to crank it over a few times here, spray some fogging oil in there, and hopefully it'll get into the cylinders without having to pull the plugs out. Okay, so just got done spraying about a half a can or a third of a can of fogging oil in both of the throttle bodies. While I was turning it over, I just put the air cleaner back on here, put the distributor plug back on, and then there's 2 plugs that go on the thermostat housing, one here and then another one on the other side. You would have had to disconnect those to get the thermostat housing off. Now I'm just going to put oil back in it, and oil goes in right here. Check it with the dipstick. It should take about 5 quarts, so a gallon and a fourth. And then change the oil filter. I'm going to do that before I put the oil back in. The oil filter is the blue guy down there right now. The oil filter can be this variation or a pH 5 from Fram. There's tons of them. It's very common. And as far as oil goes, we've got the Rotella 15W40. If you can't find this, you can use straight weight. So just make sure it's straight 40 weight oil from Shell. Rotella, it'll say like diesel, heavy duty diesel or whatever. That's what we want to use. So, all right, that's it.